Any discussion of the Malayan emergency, 1948-1960, would be incomplete without the discussion of a subsequent insurgency from 1962 to 1990. This was the communist insurgency in Kalimantan, in Sarawak, and in Sabah. It started with a revolt in 1962 in Brunei, where there was a attempted coup d'etat to to bring down the Sultanate in Brunei, because there were people who were opposed to the formation of Malaysia. So at that time, Brunei was in discussions with Semenanjung as well as Sabah and Sarawak about the formation of Malaysia, and in the event, Brunei opted not to join Malaysia. But the communists carried on until 1990, and in 1970, the Sarawak government decided to form a RASCOM, the Rejang Area Security Command, to get rid of the communists. Now, I think I'd like to register for prosperity the role of my uncle, Brigadier-General Mohamad Shukor bin Haji Abdullah, who was the last RASCOM commander. He actually made his job redundant by getting all the communists to surrender. So this is outlined in this video. So I hope you can learn something from it. And I also want to dedicate this video to my late uncle for his contribution to Malaysia. And for information, the Sarawak government gave him a Datukship for his role in getting the communists to surrender.
The communist insurgency in Borneo, RASCOM, the Rejang Valley, and the quiet end of a forgotten war. Overshadowed by the Malayan emergency, the communist insurgency in Borneo, especially in Sarawak, persisted as one of the longest, most underreported guerrilla conflicts in Southeast Asia. Stretching from the early 1960s to 1990, it was a struggle that cut through jungles, ethnic divisions, ideological battlegrounds, and Cold War politics. Though small in global terms, it was a conflict with enduring national significance. Brought to a peaceful conclusion not only by force, but by quiet diplomacy, socio-political ingenuity, and the strategic leadership of military figures like Brigadier-General Mohamad Shukor bin Haji Abdullah, the final commander of RASCOM. Roots of rebellion. The communist insurgency in Borneo began in the wake of the failed Brunei Revolt of 1962, when leftist forces attempted to overthrow Brunei's monarchy and prevent the formation of Malaysia. Though the revolt was crushed within days, it radicalized many left-leaning elements in Sarawak and Sabah, particularly among the ethnic Chinese. Viewing the Malaysian Federation as a neo-colonial project, hundreds fled into Indonesian Kalimantan, then under President Sukarno, to receive training in Marxist-Leninist ideology and guerrilla warfare. Two armed groups emerged: the Sarawak People's Guerrilla Force, SPGF, and the North Kalimantan People's Army, Paraku. With support from Indonesia during the Konfrontasi, 1963-66, these forces launched jungle-based raids across the border, attacking police outposts and sabotaging infrastructure. Even after Suharto's rise in 1965 and the end of Indonesia's support, the communist guerrillas, by then united under the North Kalimantan Communist Party, NKCP, continued their fight, hoping to replicate the success of the Malayan Communist Party. RASCOM, a civil military innovation, faced with a drawn-out jungle insurgency and a vulnerable civilian population, the Sarawak state government sought to replicate the counterinsurgency success of the Malayan emergency, but tailored for Sarawak's geography and demography. In 1971, Chief Minister Abdul Rahman Yaqub established the Rejang Area Security Command, RASCOM, to lead this effort. Based in Cebu, RASCOM integrated civil, military, and police efforts under a unified structure. Its jurisdiction covered the Rejang Basin, particularly hotspots like Kanawit, Julao, Kapit, and the remote interiors where communist activity persisted. Unlike conventional military commands, RASCOM worked across departments, combining security operations with psychological warfare, economic development, education, infrastructure expansion, and ideological re-engagement with the local population. Security through development became its motto. Roads were built, schools were opened in isolated villages, former insurgents were offered amnesty, reintegration, and jobs. People were relocated from vulnerable rural areas to fortified settlements to sever the guerrillas' supply and intelligence networks. The psychological effect was enormous. RASCOM not only deprived the NKCP of material support, but also of legitimacy. By 1973, the tide was visibly turning. A significant breakthrough came when Bong Ki-chok, a senior NKCP leader, accepted amnesty and surrendered along with hundreds of followers. Though some hardcore insurgents continued the struggle into the 1980s, they were increasingly fragmented, elderly, and cut off from broader ideological currents. Brigadier-General Mohamad Shukor bin Haji Abdullah, a quiet architect of peace. In the final years of the insurgency, Brigadier-General Mohamad Shukor bin Haji Abdullah assumed command of RASCOM. He inherited not just a military post, but a multidimensional mandate: consolidate peace, secure national integration, and ensure that the insurgency ended without future flare-ups. Shukor's leadership style was notable for its measured pragmatism and deep engagement with the local community. Fluent in Bahasa Malaysia and fully aware of Sarawak's ethnic intricacies, he cultivated relationships with Longhouse leaders, Chinese community elders, and former insurgent sympathizers, treating security not as conquest, but as reconciliation. His focus was on encouraging defections through dialogue and trust building, not merely through patrols and ambushes. While remaining a capable military tactician, Shukor increasingly functioned as a peacemaker and political mediator. He understood that the last remnants of the NKCP were more ideologically fatigued than radicalized, men and women who had grown old in the jungle, estranged from their families and increasingly irrelevant in a world that had moved on from Marxist revolutions. Under his tenure, RASCOM intensified rehabilitation programs for ex-combatants, offered microcredit schemes, agricultural land, and ensured educational access for the children of surrendered fighters. His command ensured the final link in a chain of reintegration that allowed the state to dissolve the insurgency without mass imprisonment or cycles of vengeance. This approach culminated in the formal surrender of the NKCP on the 17th of October 1990 in Kuching, with federal and state representatives, special branch officials, and former rebel leaders in attendance. Shukor, though not the man at the podium, had been instrumental in laying the groundwork for this moment. By ensuring the last guns were laid down in exchange for dignity, not humiliation, he helped close a chapter of violence with no resumption. And then, perhaps most remarkably, he made his job redundant. With the insurgency over, RASCOM was formally disbanded. The Rejang Basin was declared fully secure. What had once been a war zone became fertile ground for commerce, education, and cross-cultural exchange. Brigadier-General Mohamad Shukor bin Haji Abdullah became the last RASCOM commander, a rare military officer whose legacy lies not in conquest or campaigns, but in graceful closure. His departure marked the symbolic and structural end of one of Malaysia's most effective, if lesser-known, counterinsurgency operations. RASCOM's headquarters in Cebu was later converted for civilian use. The people once guarded and surveyed by joint patrols were now participants in national life, not subjects of suspicion. Historical legacy. The communist insurgency in Borneo is often neglected in Malaysian history syllabi, eclipsed by the more dramatic Malayan emergency. Yet its resolution, especially through the nonviolent dismantling of a communist insurgency by military and civilian cooperation, remains a model of post-conflict transition. Figures like Brigadier-General Mohamad Shukor bin Haji Abdullah deserve wider recognition, not just for their service in uniform, but for understanding that peace is won not only through strength, but also through humility, dialogue, and humanity. His tenure reminds us that security commands, though armed, can be bridges to peace, not walls of occupation. In making RASCOM obsolete, Shukor didn't end his mission, he fulfilled it. A heartfelt light. To every soul whose hand did give, you've helped me dream, helped me live. In darkest hours your light came through, with hearts so kind, so pure, so true. Your gifts, like stars in deepest night, have steered me gently toward the light. Each coin, each word, each silent prayer, a thread of hope, so rich, so rare. My eyes once dimmed now seek the skies, and slowly, clearer visions rise. Because of you, I dare to see the world again. Its grace, its plea. Your compassion's flame will not just stay with me alone. It lights the way for others wandering through despair to feel the warmth of selfless care. You've shown what love in action means, in quiet ways through giving scenes. You've built a bridge from soul to soul and made the broken feel more whole. So let this thanks rise like a song, a melody both soft and strong. May your example gently call more hearts to rise to give. To fall into the joy of lifting pain, of planting hope where none remains. Your kindness walks beside me still, a light, a love, a living will.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to show your support.